Today's episode of the Jeskidding podcast is risk versus reward. Is playing it safe actually worth it? And in some cases, I'd say it is, but we're going to cover that. So this is a Jeskidding podcast. Sometimes I say shit that's kind of inappropriate, and I was like, I'm just kidding. And other times I say things that are thoughtful, and you're like, just kidding, and a light bulb goes off. That covers it. iTunes, Spotify, all over the fucking place. YouTube, you get it. Let's move on. Risk versus reward, ladies and gentlemen. Is playing it safe worth it? And to play it safe, according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, because they're English and they're smart enough to be English, it's defined as to be careful and to not take risks. To play safe, I'd allow extra 10 minutes just in case. That was, I guess, they give some stupid, cheesy example. Maybe they should play it safe and not break up their country from the rest of Europe. But that's a different topic altogether on Jeskidding Podcast. So we're talking about rewards for taking risks. I'm a risk taker. I'm going to announce it here on the podcast today. I'm a major risk taker in my life. I'm somebody who never plays it safe, but probably should more than the risks that I take. Erica, how would you, Erica, artist, by the way, she does art and stuff. T-Bubbles has arrived in the chat room with everybody else. We're actually live on Twitch. So if you hear me say weird names like Zed Spec and Andy7629 and T-Bubbles, it's because I'm talking to a bunch of crazy people over the internet because I'm a risk taker. So I'm a risk taker, and I'm here with artist Erica Langworthy. I'm being very long-winded. That's part of my risk. Erica, would you consider yourself a risk taker?
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
I mean,
In which ways are you a risk taker? Tell us.
Well, my profession is risky.
What profession is that for those that are the ill-informed?
I apologize. I'm a professional artist, specializing in motion graphics and game development.
So this is a risky job because of what? Why is it risky?
Well, the biggest thing is everybody wants to do it, and sometimes the layoff in between projects can be a little daunting.
So it's financially risky. You've entered into a financially risky field with your entire life, right?
Yeah.
Is it also personally risky to do something like this? Like, are there ninjas that try to kill you when you go to work?
Oh, I mean, if you get like a shitty manager or shitty coworkers, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I could see that. And do you have to defend using throwing stars yourself? No, that makes no sense where this is going. So you're in a risky field. It's professionally risky. Is it risky as well because you're putting yourself on the line? Would you call it risky for that reason?
Reputation-wise, yeah, you can damage your reputation for sure if you screw up badly enough.
So I know a little about you because we've worked together many times before, and you've done great work for me. And you've created wonderful things for games like Grand Theft Auto, like an app for two guys docking their penises. And it was in 3D. Was that a risky thing to create, knowing that you would one day want to work for like a museum or something?
To be honest, like I kind of just live in the moment, and if I think, however long down the road, like, oh my god, somebody's gonna see that I made an animation that was poking fun at a sex move between two men. I'm like, but the other thing is like a woman made this, so I just can't.
I think you're safe.
I can't.
You get a pass, right? Two dicks
and it's
clashing made by a woman. That's totally legal.
But they're cylindrical, they're not really dicks. But I mean, isn't that the whole? I'm probably not gonna try to get off on a tangent here because I do that. But isn't the whole idea of art is to kind of like
take risks? Maybe
stimulate people and take risks.
Right. Well, I think so. I think everything that we do is risky. I think that I'm also an artist. So today I was gonna have somebody on in addition to us that was not an artist. So we're gonna have to have some non-artists come in here. But I think most of the people on my channel may be artists. But today, but both of us are risk takers by nature because we have gone into a risky field. What's a way that you're not risky? What are you what are you risk adverse to? Like in like your life, and this could be anything, and I'll list a few. I can go first. You can go first. Up to you.
Risk sometimes applying to jobs, I'm risk adverse, or
because it's why?
Because I'm a little shell shocked from working from really awful places, and I'll go on Glassdoor and do research if like there's a consensus as to why a place is bad. I'm like, nope, fuck this. I'm not putting myself in that situation again.
So you don't want to risk being in another bad situation. I think a lot of people suffer from this, but is that correct? Is that a yes or no on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and a lot of people are like this, like people in a shitty relationship, they don't want to take a risk on another relationship. So you're saying that some of being risky, right? Your tolerance for risk is based upon negative experiences in the past, right? That,
Oh yeah.
they kind of scar you from wanting to take the same risk. Like, oh, I went in that jungle and that lion ate me last time, and I want my keep my other arm because that's the arm I use for pleasure. Changing the television, obviously. I wasn't talking about anything weird. And I'm not gonna go back in that jungle because why risk it? Even though I know on the other side of that jungle is my favorite coconut tree. And I don't know if the jungle really has coconuts. I don't really know anything about the jungle, but let's just go with this fucking analogy. So maybe I don't go back in that jungle because, I'm now risk adverse because of a negative experience. I agree with this. I've had plenty of these in the past. I've been scarred by things, but I'm a kind of weird guy. This is known, obviously. You're listening to me here. You know I'm a weird guy. I don't think I have to qualify this. But I take more risks when, which is this is crazy, but this is what I'm about to describe to you, ladies and gentlemen, is a masochistic behavior that I don't want you to emulate at home. I'm going to admit this. When something doesn't go my way and I'm scarred by it, I double down on it. Almost always. Even though it's fucked me up. That not in all cases, but in a lot. But when I do it, I'm terrified while I'm doing it. But I feel it's my moral obligation to myself to take a double risk. I don't know what's wrong with me. Is that weird, Erica?
It is risky because it's like you're trying to force something,
Nah.
and sometimes doubling down
It's
is
bad.
not
So,
the best.
so that's not always a
Yeah.
good risk. So I should learn more
Yeah.
from my past and be more cautious in some situations, maybe?
You should temper it more.
Temperate. This is interesting. So we're going to get to that. I should write that down. This is a good word. Tempering. Tempering and risk, okay? Let's talk about other things. Moments. Give me a moment in your life, and then I'll give you one of mine. We're going to trade stories. And ladies and gentlemen from the chat room, please give me any stories that you have. What's a risk that you took in your life? 2 risks. One that you both are glad you took. Put it over there, the number one. And the second one will be one that you regretted.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
Ooh.
Well, I gotta think back to something I regret. So, the good risk I'm glad I took was moving to New York City. Glad I took the risk and moved to New York City.
Why is that?
Bad risk?
Why was that?
Well, my life greatly improved. Like I became a better human being. My career really took off. I paid off my student loans. I got to work at places I'd never thought I'd work. I basically made my dreams come true. As cheesy as that sounds, like did everything I set out to do, and then some.
Amazing. Okay, now one that you regretted. You took a risk on something. You're like, fuck.
Bad risk is it's really I don't have any like. Well, bad risk is just getting involved with an awful guy in my early 20s. Really, really bad, just bad call. Bad call.
But did you think, sometimes I think risks, people look at them retroactively, right? They're like, oh, I made a bad mistake because it didn't turn out well. As opposed to a risk would be a bad mistake if you knew the situation in front of you was not in your favor and you still did it anyway. That's when I would regret. That's just me. I'm not speaking for you. Like if, I had all the signs were there. I mean, it's easy to regret something that sucked after the fact, but you probably, with this person that you were involved with, saw some of the signs before you took that risk anyway, right?
Yeah, I knew better, and I just thought I was smarter, and I guess that's how you learn lessons, right? That's one of the things
true.
that risk.
So I agree with you. I think that risk is something that you do learn lessons from. I mean, I think you take a risk, whether it's a good or a bad one. You're like, fuck. For me, I've done all kinds of crazy shit in my life. I'm gonna, by the way, in a minute we're gonna let Zed in here. He's in the room already. He's being very quiet because he's being very respectful. Zed is from South, not America, Africa. Totally different place. Totally different animals. One has like lions. The other one has tigers. I don't know. I don't know anything about anything. But we'll get to him in a second. I've taken so many risks in my life. Some that I was like, that wasn't such a good fucking idea. Career-wise, every day I am an artist too, so I regret it / love it that I took these risks. I mean, it's got so many benefits, so many non-benefits. There's so much fear baked into it of what's gonna pay the bills tomorrow that I'm like, yo, was this a bad fucking choice? Was this the wrong risk? And I think about that all the time. Like every day I'm like, did I take the wrong fucking risk? or did I take the perfectly right risk? And I think that some risks you don't know until they're done. I mean, the famous Wayne Gretzky quote of "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." So a lot of risk is amazing. A lot of risk is like necessary, and those that take a lot of risks actually move forward a lot. But I think that people in their youth take more than others. So let's go to the chat room for a second. And Danny said, one risk I took that I'm glad I took, coming out. Danny is a gay woman, and Danny came out, and that was very risky. And we applaud you for that, because who the fuck knows how people are going to react to that shit? You can't control that. Be like, hey, I'm gay, I hate you. What? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I applaud anybody that is in that situation and comes out to that sort of certain unknown to a core thing in their life. I mean, that's amazing. So, all right, let's get to Zed. Zed, are you here in the chat room with us from South
Yes.
Africa? Africa. I've combined two continents. South Africa. It's a continent.
South Africa.
Yeah,
is
bro.
definitely where I'm from.
There's a turbo train. Elon Musk is building it right now to South Africa. I'd like to give a quick shout out to the chat room too, to all the people in it. We have Mike and T Bubbles and Zed, and these, like I said, they sound like fucking crazy people, but they're not. And Flutter and on and on and on. How are you, Zed?
Elon Musk is also from South Africa.
He's not South African.
Yes, went to Pretoria Boys High School. Anyways,
facts.
I'm doing good, man.
Great. So tell me your risks that you took and keep it short, because we don't want this. You know, it's too risky to be long-winded on a podcast where I never shut the fuck up, because I'll cut you off. That's risky. Keep going.
Very, very short story.
Great.
When I first moved into my very first apartment, I had a really shitty landlord who would hide his sources of light bulbs and stuff, right? And there was a clause in the lease that said that if the tenant does not replace these light bulbs or anything like that, they lose their deposit, and it actually reflects badly on you the next time you rent an apartment or whatever. So I searched far and wide for these light bulbs because I couldn't find them. He got them from a faraway place.
So would you take them out of the closet to put them in the actual lights? As you were saying, it was like a bunch of light bulbs?
Yeah, so no, like the actual light fittings, right? The light bulbs in the light fittings, you couldn't find them anywhere.
The fixtures. Yeah, you're from South Africa, so I don't know all of your terminology.
So I searched everywhere to find these things when they were broken, and they would break often. Like, and he chose them specifically for this so that he could get the deposit.
He's got you on some sort of like fucking Hunger Games like lighting edition.
Yeah. So I found two places eventually after about 4 months of searching where I could get them. The one place was a quiet town that I had to catch a plane to go to, and the closest place to me was a town called Mannenberg. And Mannenberg is a very, very violent place.
Sounds bad.
Basically home of gang hideouts, and just to put it into perspective, the police do not drive through there unless it's in riot vehicles, and the police stations in that town have all been burned down.
Jesus
Christ.
It's
basically
Assault
the
on
Wild
Precinct
West
13. Holy shit. That's crazy.
And I was really scared to go there, but eventually I did, and I got my light bulbs from a guy who sold them for use as tuck pipes, which is basically like a homemade version of crack.
So
I got my light bulbs.
You bought your light bulbs from a guy who uses the fixtures as crack pipes. Okay, please continue. I like this. Okay, this is a very South African story. I don't know. I saw District 9.
So if I did not do that, I would have had to pay my initial deposit to him. I would have lost my deposit. I would have had 15,000 rand less than I did had I not gone there.
which in dollars is like $2 million.
No, it's more like right now about $113.
That's too much for my blood too. I'd be searching in Mam Town or whatever that fucking place is called too if I was you. Crack pipe village.
Yeah.
So, okay, you got it. Did you replace the fixtures?
Yeah, I did, and I got my deposit back at the end.
Nice, dude. Did you smoke crack out of one of the fixtures before you gave it back?
No, but I did actually get into a rap battle with a gang member, and that was really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So pictures or didn't have it.
I don't think I have any pictures. You don't want to be taking pictures in
No, that's not it. Yeah, I don't want to be... listen, if I ever visit I'm not going to say Africa again, South Africa, I will never be visiting. I'm putting this little pin on it with an X through it with a skull on it. now that I've heard it from you. All right, so T-Bubbles, the chat room said, risk I took, giving up a film career to pursue esports. Took 3 years of no pay, taking gigs she didn't want, so she could survive with no steady income, but it was worth it because now she's working esports, which is amazing. So fantastic. So I think that's great. And I think that you're going to hear a lot of stories here today where people took risks, and we're going to talk about that, and it worked out. But I also want to say, is that always the right course of action? Because sometimes it's, the tortoise versus the hare example, right? It's not. And some risks burn you real bad. Burn you in a way that you can't come back from. You know what I'm saying? So for me, let's see. I made Drawn by Pain, a movie that took me 3 years and $50,000, whatever. I had I had no job. I quit my job. I had $10K in the bank, and I hired a $1,500 a month publicist for it. Which means it would drain my rent money to publicize my film. I rented booths at New York Anime Festival and New York Comic Con, where we handed out 10,000 flyers, and we got, Jon Stewart came by our booth, and, the people and Eric was part of that project. So it was crazy. The risk I take on these projects, just like this right now, I'm running a Twitch stream for not a lot of people, wonderful people, but with 4 camera, you know what I'm saying? $15,000 of equipment for a speculative adventure. Now, some people would say that's fucking nuts. They would, including me. I think I might be the first person to say this is fucking crazy. This risk is over the top and unnecessary. But I feel that if you take the right risk and you put the right effort, you give yourself a much higher chance of being successful. If all the elements sort of line up. But the downside of that is there is a penalty for taking these chances. And this is what risk versus reward is. Because sometimes, and is playing it safe worth it, sometimes the slower but surer way, it's like the idea between the bold moves and the steady moves. Which one's better, Zed? Bold or steady?
Try to find a balance between both.
Okay. Erica?
It depends. It really depends. You say bold or steady. It just depends on what the outcome is.
Fair enough. So like I said, though, it's like, I think as a culture, what we fucking do, what's funny about risk as a culture, this is what's hilarious. And this is like almost any parent for their kid, is that like we celebrate anybody that's taken big risks. We do, right? Would you all agree that we celebrate people who took big risks and were successful? We agree with that, right? Yeah. The guy who lived out of his car and became a movie star. The guy who, was a UFC fighter and fought 200 fights and nobody knows him. Then he just rose to the top because he was so good. The girl who, had no legs and yet, fucking ran 3,000 miles with robot arms on her arms. I don't know where I was going with that. I was trying to find an example. Couldn't think of anything. It's stupid. I'm sorry. So
the guy who spent $3 during the Great Depression and started KFC.
Right, exactly. But I wanted to use women in there because I didn't want it to be sexist, and I have a female audience, and it's important, right? But the one fucking thing I came up with for women was a lady with robot legs that ran with her arms.
Maybe he identified as a woman.
I failed on that example. I took a risk on the joke, and it failed. Okay, but we only hear about those people when they're successful. We love the story, right? And we never hear about the people who failed, which is like the other 999%. So that's why parents and most people look down on people who take too much risk. Believe it or not. I believe this. I think that people are like, there's 2 types of people. Those that look down on people who take risks and those that celebrate them because they don't have the guts to take them themselves. Right? I have friends like that who are very celebratory, but most parents will say, don't go into the arts. Don't drop out of high school to form a band. Play the steady but sure game because you'll have a better life. What do you think?
Well, sometimes with the risk thing, it's like take a calculated risk. Like if you have no money, no home, no nothing, like, I'm gonna be a full-time musician. It's like, bro, you can't pay rent. And they're like, but I just want to make music. It's like reality is like right next to you, right, and you're not paying attention. Like it sucks to say, hey, I gotta go get a job so I can pay rent, so I can be a musician. Like, I had to work a part-time job. I was going to art school. All I want to do is my art, but that's just how the finances were. And coming to New York and working at, I mean, it was more money that I was making in Ohio, but working at BT and working on John by Paint with Jesse, because it's the only way it could happen. That's
Right.
the only way.
So, is there such thing as a question for both of you? I think there is 100% yes. Are there stupid risks? Can you take stupid risks? I've taken many. So, physical, like running across the street when there's like 1,000 cars coming and be like, I got it. And then,
That's just daily life, yeah.
right? Yeah, me here too, believe it or not. You know, stupid risks, saying something to somebody that I probably shouldn't, knowing that they're probably going to try to hurt me or get me fired. I've taken those risks because it just, that moment was like, it's worth it. I'll feel, that risk was like a personal one. It was like, it's going to make me feel better and it's worth the risk of getting fired. Turns out one of them I got fired. There was one that I worked at, was I 17? And I worked at this fucking pharmacy, which is still in New York somehow. And I hated this job so much that every day I contemplated, just pouring every chemical in the store all over my body, from hair, cream to fucking foot cream. And they would tell me when I wasn't busy that I needed to face out. And what they meant by that was I need to go to every fucking bottle and make sure that it was perfectly face out and each bottle across the entire store. Now, there hadn't been anybody in the store in like 4 fucking hours. Right? So there ain't nothing to face out that didn't get faced out 4 hours ago, but I'd have to go through everything. I just couldn't take it anymore, and the guy was such a cheap fuck who ran the place that one day I started laughing, and he's like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, your face, right? And I got fired. Right? So I took the risk.
Well done.
I took the risk because I'm like, I'm going to risk telling this guy off because he not going to fire me, and he fired me. But I was kind of glad that I got fired. I think I wanted to get fired, and that's what that happened. But some risks, like I played practical jokes on people. I took karate, right? Every time I took karate, I went into competition, I risked getting hurt. And was it worth it? It's only worth it because I got a lot of, in my brain, great experience out of it. It was a trial by fire. So those are great risks for me. But would it have been worth it if I became paralyzed? And retroactively, I'd say no. You know what I'm saying? But then there are football players who get paralyzed and they're like, it's so worth it. And I'm not saying they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? I just think it's interesting how we have retroactive judgment on risk. And for people we care about or people we want to hate on, we have sort of this weird sort of like hatred or judgment when somebody takes bad risks. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a friend. And we can talk about your own stories. Please tell me stories. I love stories. And anybody in the chat room wants to come in, we'll figure it out. Some yes, some no, whatever. I'm not taking too many risks because you may be more charming than me, and that's risky to my ego. So anyway, where somebody came in the chat room and said something crazy, so my brain just exploded. Jesus Christ. We're doing a discussion about risk versus reward. We're not talking about video games. So it's a very risky comment to drop some kind of crazy video game thing in here. So anyway, back to the channel, right, for a second. It's easy. I'm easily distracted. I take a risk by doing a podcast because everything that happens around me distracts me from the actual podcast. So that's a risk. What was I talking about before that?
You were talking about, is it stupid to take a dumb risk and yeah.
Well, I think in many cases,
asking for stories, yeah.
Yeah, well, so I took martial arts. I did that for a long time. Super risky. I got into the arts. I moved to California. Big risk. And in hindsight, I'd say that big risk in some ways turned into a big mistake. But it's hard to call something a big mistake when you contextualize it and that you learned a lot from it. I think risk is necessary. I think risk is something you do much more as a child. I think risk is much more encouraged in children. But I think that the moment you stop taking risk is the moment you limit yourself from potential opportunity, But I definitely think there's such thing as a fucking stupid risk. I've had friends, they're like, I'm going to move across the world for this girl that I met 2 months ago. I got to take the risk. This could be the one. True love. Right? Now you know who I'm talking about, Erica, right? And you know what I'm saying?
I know how that feels.
Yeah, exactly. We all do. We've all been there, trust me. I'm going to go because this is going to be the answer, right? And then you get there and you're like, yeah, what a fucking stupid fucking risk this was. I ain't got no money, right? She's all of a sudden sleeping with somebody else while I'm there. These are things that have happened to other people, right? And why the fuck did I fly across the world? This is a bad risk. Some risks are personally stupid, professionally stupid, and then personal safety stupid all at the same time.
Can I interject to
Please.
make a point?
Make many
I
points.
think that taking a stupid risk will always be worth it.
Wow,
Whether the outcome
big
is
statement.
good or not.
Taking a stupid risk
because-
is always worth it. Go ahead.
If the outcome is good for you. But if the outcome is bad, you face the consequences. You learn the life lesson. You grow as a person. You're now more mature. You're wiser than you were before.
I agree with this completely.
And that wisdom has value.
I agree with this completely. But I will say that there are some risks that involve your actual fucking life that maybe that's not so
absolutely.
true.
Yeah, no, those risks are stupid.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to be a fucking flying squirrel outside of a what are you dropping down and you're like floating on this fucking thing and you're like, oh, it's the first time I did it. I met a group of women recently, not lately, and I did like a little film shoot. Somebody actually paid me to do it. That are going to climb Mount Everest. Now I look at that and I'm like, that's a good risk. Do you think that's a good risk, Erica?
I mean,
Oh,
if
that's a
it's-
long
I mean, look, there are more dangerous mountains to climb than Everest. There's that crazy mountain in Tibet that's like way taller than Everest. I forget what it's called.
Mount Tibet,
anyway-
Tibetan Manjaro.
No.
No, sorry, I took a risk.
But I would say what they're doing is brave. Like you know the risks going in, but I think what you're doing is brave. Now, if you're saying like if you're in trouble and running out of food, or somebody's at the risk of dying of exposure, I'd be like, look, we can't make it to the top. We gotta go back.
Well, I agree with you on everything you just said. I think it's like but there's like at least that's when we'll talk about a little bit. That's managed risk, right? You kind of know the dangers. Other people have done it before, and there's some personal reward you get. I think it's a brave thing too. So I admire that risk. What do you say?
Was it Mount Kailash?
Look at you, bro. Using the internet? Is this?
I
Are we
think
on Jeopardy? You know he's got cancer, right? That's terrible.
Oh my god. Was that the one they call
It's
K2? I forget. They did a documentary on it, and I really.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
tall
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
mountain. It's off topic.
That's it.
It's off topic, assholes.
No,
We're not talking
but-
about- what happened? This is not the fucking which mountain did somebody climb episode of Jeskidding. It's risk versus reward. Okay, let's get back to it. Look at me cracking the whip. That was a risk because I risked you guys hating me after that comment. So that's personal risk. Who burped that? Who was that? Who was that?
I
It
don't
was
know.
not me.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, right? It was risky to say which one of you it was. Sometimes it's risky to reveal your position, much like coming out, right? It's risky to say what you're really thinking. Do you think there's risk every day of revealing what's actually going through your brain? I have that risk all the time. I'm like, oh shit,
I
if
don't
I...
even know what's going through my brain, so
No, I've never... Somebody asked me in the chat room if I ever climbed a mountain. Mike did. No, I've never climbed a mountain. Why the fuck would I do that? I'm not climbing a mountain. I'm not jumping out of a fucking plane. Why would I do that? I did go up in a plane, a little mini prop plane thing, and I took pictures. I'm like, all right, I was at this film festival, and they're like, hey, do you want to come take pictures from a plane? Like, literally. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, a little prop plane. We'll go up in the plane. I'm going now. Fucking 10 minutes later, I'm in the air. And this little thing that's going, and I had no fear whatsoever because I was shooting. For something about when I'm shooting something, all risk goes out the window. I don't care. Because at that moment, the film or the project is more important than my personal safety or anything else. And so my risk meter just disappears. And that's how I am sometimes, you know? And then I come back and I'm the most terrified fucker on the planet. I go from wanting, I don't know if you're like this, Zed or Erica, I go from being the ultimate risk taker to the ultimate coward in like 2 seconds. Like in so many different ways.
I'm the same, but in opposite directions.
Interesting. You go from being the ultimate coward to the ultimate risk taker.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, which one are you first?
Can you be like scared, okay, then scared?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I think that's a good order. I think you described it correctly. I'll be terrified to take my next venture, but then but my whole thing is I'm terrified of everything. I'm scared of every single thing I do. And then I do it because I'm the bravest coward I've ever met. Meaning that like I am scared of everything, and yet I do it because I feel obligated to overcome it. Everything. Doing this. Like when I went to do this podcast today, I was like, this is going to be risky to do this podcast. Why is it going to be risky? It's risky because, and this was what happens in my brain. It's risky because what if nobody shows up? What if I'm not good? What if I freeze up? What if nobody likes it? What if, and that's the micro. Then we get to the macro. What if it doesn't do anything for my career overall? What if I've just wasted the last 3 months of my life and all this money doing it? What if, and so on. I mean, this is a long list for anything I do. And then my brain says, yeah, but you got to fucking do it. You got to, because you know it's the right thing to do. I mean, for me, I fear that risk. I'm petrified of that risk, but I have to do it. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And I'm kicking and screaming on some things. Not the podcast today. I've gotten pretty used to the stream, but there's definitely fear. And I think fear and risk are directly tied to one another. Would you say that, Zed?
Yes, absolutely. Fear and risk are definitely tied to each other.
Don't just repeat me, bro. I don't like it. That's condescending. No, you're not being condescending. You're actually agreeing, and I appreciate it.
I'm not condescending.
No, I know.
It's like...
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like when... As a guy, you understand this thought pretty well, probably. Like when you first start interacting with women, right? You start out shy, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking like when you first start interacting with a specific woman. I'm talking like when you're young, you don't really know how to talk to women. You're going to like a party or whatever, and you want to start, talking to them, right? You're scared to take the risk of talking to them because you're scared of the rejection,
right.
The outcome of it. It can be negative.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you know that the outcome would ever be positive if you don't try?
Well, I definitely think that the risks that failed as a kid scar you as an adult. I really believe that. Like the time that you took a chance to get onto some sports team and you didn't get on as a child, whatever that was, can sometimes, like 30 years later, you're not taking the risk of investing in some stock or fucking quitting a job to go for what you really want, or that can all go back to that 1 minute that woman who grew up to be very unattractive later, trust me, I saw her, right? That woman, right, that you thought was your golden fucking prize has now ruined your life 30 years later, but actually you've ruined your own life. I'm not really talking from experience. What? Is it on? We're still going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, so risk versus reward. Let's get back to it. So does risk, your tolerance for risk come from your parents? Does it taught to you how risky you should be or you shouldn't be? Take it away, Erica.
My parents teaching me to take risk. Well, the one thing that they always told me growing up was where I grew up wasn't the world. Basically telling me there's a very big world out there that you haven't seen yet.
So you think that was partially advocating you to take the risk of seeing it in that teaching?
Yeah, because my parents had seen a lot, and they knew there was a lot out there, that it wasn't this small, stupid town I grew up in.
So did you feel that at some point in your life, deep inside you, that was a risk that you had to take?
Yeah, but in general, I'm an adventurous person as it stands, and sometimes I think we've all done this. You don't really think about the risk, like when you're young and, I don't say naive. Well, part of your brain hasn't even finished developing yet. But
dumb. Yeah, you're dumb.
You're dumb, but you just take the risks.
But you're lovely. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Not you. You're the young person. You're fine too.
No, but I mean, I think the way I look at risk in general for me, especially with the moving to New York, is like I can risk staying in Ohio and I know where this is going to end up, or I can risk moving to New York City and not know how it's going to end up, and I can make it up as I go along, and it worked out.
So can we conclude from what you just said that risk is good when it's seeking a more positive outcome? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just taking a risk for risk's sake is stupid sometimes. Like, not as a learning process, but like, like there are people out there that like thrill seekers. They take risks just for the thrill, right? And I've done some of that. I'm saying they do stupid shit just to get that kick. You know what I mean? That really won't better their lives. I mean, you did something that bettered your life, so I think that that's a good risk. I think that's a risk that you had to take. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. One quick note is like Donald Cerrone, one of my favorite MMA fighters, does fucking crazy shit. He almost died cave diving. But he's still doing it now because he enjoys it.
But we all judge that, right? Like I listened to the podcast with him, and we all secretly judge his level of risk. I think we judge each other's risk all the time. I think it's something nobody talks about. Like when I heard his diving story, I heard the same thing. And part of my brain was like constantly assessing, think it's like we internalize their risk, right? We say, did he take a good risk or was he stupid? You know what I'm saying? Was that we watch another fighter, Habib. He wrestled a bear when he was a kid. Was that a good risk or a bad risk? Well, now that he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, it was a good one. But a normal parent seeing a father put their child to wrestle a bear, you'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. That's a bad risk. So we're always judging each other's risks at all time. Let me look at this. So would you say that younger people are more apt to take risks? You think it's built in? Do you think time causes some people to take less risks? I think so. I think that people who are younger are more naturally prone to taking more chances on things. What do you think?
I think that... Well, are you speaking to OCD or to both of them?
I'm speaking to the world, and you are the two on the microphone that can answer me. Either way,
okay,
jump
in. I think that it's different for everyone. For example, I'm different. When I was younger, I took hardly any risks. But as I grew older, I started taking more and more and more.
Interesting. Erica, what about you?
I think I agree with Zed that it depends on who you are. Like, I think in some cases, like, say none the wiser, but as you get older and you learn more shit and you get more outcomes, you may become more reserved.
Right.
Or you may just say...
I'm sorry, please finish.
Oh, no, it's fine. I don't want to go off.
No. You say fuck it. I think that's what you're going to say it. So Jerry in the chat room said something interesting. He said, people who are younger do not know the consequences of that risk. And that's very interesting. So as you learn consequences, right, you become less risk embracing. You know what I mean? Like as you learn content, because you know where the negative side of that risk goes. And in some ways, you may harm yourself by not taking risks that will really benefit you. And I think we live in a world where you have to take risk. But then there are people who are steady but sure. You take very little risk and everything is very calculated and it really works out for them. That life really works. Then there are others who take a lot of risks. The Ralph Cramden, the Honeymooners, was an old show. But the whole story was about how every week he had a harebrained scheme to get rich. And by the way, I just shaved, so I'm not doing... I keep rubbing my nose. It looks like I'm a cokehead, but I just have a little itchy beard here. Because I'm not going to risk looking like a fucking drug addict. But you take Ralph Cramden, he always wanted to become rich. And so the whole thing was he was like a mockery because he was never happy because everything was going to... He was going to take a chance. He was going to lose more money on this thing. But if Ralph Cramden hit one of those things, Ralph Cramden would be the next Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? It's just seen in that way. So younger people taking risks, they don't know the consequences. So as you learn consequences, you become more risk adverse. But for me, I grew up as a crazy gambler type. Like my friends are always going to the fucking horse track. We're playing cards at night. My father was a news photographer, and he would take pictures of burning buildings and SWAT teams and JFK and all these famous people like in trouble, all this crazy shit. So I grew up around that. My mother was an artist, so I grew up around that too. So my whole life was filled with people taking fucking nutty risks. So risk for me, even though it's scary, is very natural. I take risks all the time. I'm like, fuck it. Fuck it, let's go. Let's fucking go. Even the way I play video games or proceed to anything is I'm a very risk-taking person. When I did karate, I would do like flip over kicks and crazy shit in the middle of a match because my brain just wants to take a chance on things. But taking a chance is risky. And when you take a chance, and as a gambler, I can firsthand say, you can lose it all. And people who take too many risks often get burnt or killed or personally unhappy. So I think it's, you have mentioned it before, measured risks. Measured risks. For me, as I've grown older, I've gotten to the point where I try to do what I would call managed risk. I think managed risk is very important. You'll have to go into the voice channel, Danny, and then Zed will drag you into this channel because it's locked. Or one of the voice channels. So we're going to be joined by Danny Zagora, who's going to take a risk and be on the podcast with us, which I think is an amazing risk because it's somebody who didn't want to do it before, but now we'll try. So let's see on the next thing. I write down stuff so I don't risk running out of fucking things to say, which would be a terrible risk. Let's talk about a risk. Let's go through a quick list of risks, right? Leaving a job that you make a lot of money, and you're going to answer yes or no. And Bubby, you can hop into it at some point if you like. So let's see if Danny's in here. Okay, Danny, can you hear me?
Yeah,
So Danny's in here. Welcome, Danny. Lovely lady here. Danny, how are you?
doing fine.
Great. Don't be nervous. You're great.
Nervous.
You have nothing to be nervous about. You're taking a good risk because this is a great place to be. So Danny, I'm just gonna be you're gonna answer some of these things, and you'll just say yes or no. I'll go through the list. I'll ask each one of you. Okay. So leaving a job that you're miserable at, but you make a lot of money at, knowing that you're gonna take a huge pay cut for a while potentially, or have no money to try to find something that's better suited for you. Good risk or bad risk? Starting with Erica. Good risk or bad risk?
Leaving a job?
Yeah, that's making you unhappy, knowing that you'll lose a big paycheck and you may not get it again. Good risk or bad
Yes.
risk?
Good risk.
Zed, good risk or bad risk?
Good risk.
Danny, good risk or bad risk?
I would say good risk.
Whoa, good risk. So all three of you agree that happiness is more important than money at that moment, right? And Jerry in the chat room, who's very financially minded and very pragmatic, he's very interesting. He said, depends. Depends. Which is very interesting because Jerry has a kid, right? 2 kids, sorry. So Jerry has obligations in his life that force him to be risk adverse. And that's something we didn't cover before. When it's just you, it's a lot easier, to say that answer. Okay, here's another one. This is going to be a simple one. Standing off a building to take a selfie on the top of a building, knowing that you're going to get a great selfie, and maybe you're famous for it, maybe you're not, right? Good risk or bad risk? Erica?
Stupid risk?
Stupid fucking risk from you, Erica. That's what I'm translating. Zed?
Is undecided an option?
Undecided? Of course, bro. Of course. It's also a political option. We'll have that podcast too. Danny?
Oh, that's just like what do you mean by standing off?
Like these dumb fucks. See how I start that? It's a very biased question. These dumb fucks who stand in the fucking dangerous place to get a great shot, knowing that they could die, to get a picture for the internet. Ooh, she may answer.
See, I've made this stupid mistake
You
before.
have? Why'd you
and
do-
I haven't gotten injured, thankfully. But
So are you glad you did it?
it was. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh well, I've never gotten injured, so it wasn't bad. It's like, well, what if you got injured? Then it would be really bad. So I would say it's a bad risk.
Which
But
is
I
bad,
did it.
But it's a bad risk that you did because it was a sense of adventure at the moment. So you needed to
Yeah.
have that sense of a moment.
Sometimes I don't think and just like do stupid things.
That's part of risk, right? So so you'd say impulsiveness, part of risk, right? I'm very impulsive, obviously, right? So impulsiveness is something. Is it worth it to sometimes say, like, they had a movie in the 80s, right? And then we're gonna get more people in the chat room in a second. But we had a movie in the 80s called Risky Business. It was Tom Cruise's big breakout role. And Risky Business, the whole tenet of the movie is he was very pragmatic. He never did anything wrong. He was going to head to an Ivy League school, and something happened, and his friend said to him, sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck, or something like that, or some word. You got to let go. You got to take a chance. You got to take a risk. And he takes a risk, and I think he hires a prostitute. Bad risk. Probably got a disease after the film that we didn't know about, right? Is in the sequel. It got canceled, right? And hires a prostitute, has sex with a prostitute on a train, right? Who turns out to be very wholesome, right? And then I think her pimp steals from him, so bad risk, right? But then, hold on a second. To fix the house that the pimp stole from, hires a whole shitload of prostitutes and makes a fortune, and then demonstrates how financially smart he is and gets into college or something like that. That's literally the movie. So it's like bad risk, followed by good risk. At least he doubles down. He gets more prostitutes, and in the sequel, even more people got. I don't want to say AIDS because this is severe. I was just gonna say herpes, but I don't know where I was going with this because he spread it to everybody else, including I think the dean of the school was at the prostitute party. I don't remember this movie very well, but the point is, it's a movie about risk. You know what I'm saying? We just got somebody in the chat room said hi from Portugal, hello from New York. We're an international podcast, by the way. We're reaching South Africa or South Africa, as we call it, because we don't know the difference between South America and South Africa because we're stupid. We're reaching. Where are you, Danny? Where are you located today?
I'm just south of you in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, we have Portugal, right? We have Florida. We have we're covering all fucking bases here. You know, this is it's risky to try to entertain people of this many cultures, but I make it work because I don't give a fuck. You know what's risky? Spilling my coffee in my leg, and now I have a big spill. I'm gonna show it on the camera.
Oh, no.
Look at the spill. That's just coffee. It's gross. You didn't see it.
Sure, it is.
It's coffee, bro. It's coffee. I'd be big risk to be masturbatory on camera. That'd be not only a risk, that would be illegal. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on from this category. Let's bring in some other people. This is a party today. It's a risk party. And I'm going to risk being overwhelmed by voices. So this is what I like to do. Yes, sorry, Erica, you had something to say?
Do you like to play the game Risk?
I love the game of Risk. I was fanatical.
The Risk is terrible.
I fucking love that game. What? What?
It is so bad.
You're taking a big personal risk by insulting something so precious to me right now. That's a personal risk.
Never played it.
You violated my board game safe space head thing. How fucking dare you? How dare you? Anyway, so I'm all about, oh my God, and Jerry said from the chat room, that board game sucks.
See,
Holy shit. None of you have an appreciation for a million little pieces of plastic that would kill children across the country if they were to get a hold of them.
I guess I could say that I didn't like the amount of strategy that went into that game.
It's a strategy game.
The amount of risk.
It's a strategy game. I didn't like.
Yeah,
I hated the fact that chess was so thought provoking. That's what you just said about Risk. How dare you? I'm moving on. I'm bringing other people in the chat room. All right, let's get Bubby. Bubby, you're here. And Jerry, we got Bubby and Jerry at the same time. Bubby, sound like you're my, Jewish aunt from fucking Florida, Bubby.
That's me.
How are you, Bubby? How are you, Jerry? Bubby, say hello.
Yo, good. Hello.
And this is Jerry from New York. Jerry's very pragmatic. Jerry's very methodical, a little blunt, a little curt, not Cobain, but just curt. How are you, Jerry? Good to hear you. See you. Jerry has two kids.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Jerry, tell me, you seem very anti-risk. Am I wrong about this?
I take calculated risk.
Very calculated. Would you call them?
Very calculated.
Like literally you use a calculator to figure out the math odds of every risk you take.
In my brain, yeah.
Yes. And in fact, Jerry's so calculating about risk that Jerry monitors everybody else's risk and calculations at all times. His brain is just like that. Am I wrong about these assertions?
I guess. I guess.
So
I try to put myself in their shoes to figure out where they're coming from. So
you're trying to figure out what they want, or are you trying to figure out the metrics of how they may or may not get there? Those are different things.
I do both.
Which one do you do more?
The metrics of whether they succeed or not. But I use risk to figure out whether and probabilities to figure out whether or not they will actually achieve it. So
hold on one second. Breaker Love from the chat room just said, is this interactive? Yes, it's 100% interactive. We're talking about risk versus reward on the podcast today. Ask a question, get an answer. Maybe not a good answer, but a risky one. So you're very calculated about what you think of what people should or shouldn't do, including yourself, obviously. And I don't say that you're doing it in a judgmental way. I just think that your brain is designed to calculate risk. And what do you do for a living? This is going to be funny.
Well, now my new job is I'm a risk manager. So I actually evaluate.
I almost spit up my coffee across the fucking room. You're a professional risk manager.
Yes. That's my new career right now at this new job.
So how would you assess, this is going to be painful, my fucking risky adventure into Twitch?
What? Why would you ask that?
I hear a gasp.
Yeah, there's a gas, a little gas. Give it to me. Show me. Like they said in The Matrix. No, don't give it to me, bro. Let's not get weird.
Are you sure you want because you've seen me comment on your Overwatch stuff before, and you're trying to shut me down.
I don't shut you down. I think that you have no sense of tact whatsoever. Those are 4 letters that you've never heard of before in your entire life, and I can't tell if you're a snark machine or you're just the bluntest person alive. But I know you're good-hearted, so I will listen to your assessment of the risks that I take on Twitch.
I think you have a chance. It's just you may need to tweak you may need to tweak a couple of things.
Which things would those be to make my risk a little less?
I don't think it's risk at all. I think it's just how you handle people in order for you to grow and become, I guess, to use a better term, viral. You know.
If I wanted to be viral, I would take the Tom Cruise approach with the prostitute. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm taking the microphone approach, which has no diseases on it. I've sprayed it before we started.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're taking it like one person at a time. And whether that scales properly is the question.
Interesting. So you have a macro view on the risk of becoming a Twitch streamer. Somebody in the chat room said Twitch takes confidence, that's for sure. Yes, it does. So I have that, but I don't have the, right now, the macro scalability. So part of the, in assessing the risks that I'm taking here, you're saying that I need more broader strokes.
I think because you're an artist, and you don't want to compromise, because that's a big thing for you, right? You don't want to compromise to the lowest common denominator in order for you to reach the masses that you want. You want specific types of people so that the channel can grow the way you want it to. But I think that the part of the problem is you can't please everyone. So you won't be able to get the audience that you want.
You're saying something extremely fascinating, by the way, and I applaud you for what's the words that are coming out of your mouth. I expected it to just be snarky and dumb, but it wasn't. It was amazing, right? Because
when I type it, it becomes snarky.
It was amazing. Yes, it was completely snarky. But what's amazing about what you said is it takes risk. It's risky not to compromise. It's fascinating. Fascinating.
Or it's a safety mechanism to keep yourself, like, it's not taking the risk of compromising.
Right. So in a way,
to keep it more enjoyable.
It's risky to just stay on the side of purity, but it's also risky to go on the other way of just pandering. So it's about a balance between the two.
Basically, he said you should dress as a furry and stream Fortnite if you want a bigger audience.
Obviously, bro. That's exactly what he was saying. Is that what you were saying, Jerry?
No. If you want the audience that you want so that you can have a successful career.
Do you want a crowd of furries?
I thought...
It's more about going viral. You just have to do something stupid, dress as a furry, and play Fortnite.
I found one of the Teletubbies mildly attractive. But I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to say which Teletubby that I thought was hot. That's for me. That's my preference. And I don't have to say what my preference is. That's too risky. Because you may judge me for which Teletubby I thought was kind of smoking fucking hot. Okay. So, Erica, what did you think of this compromising? It's fascinating, right?
What type of compromise is the question, though?
Meaning, like, you know, you have to do, sometimes it's risky to sort of stand your ground too much. Like, you feel like you're taking all this risk in one direction, but you're actually hurting your chances of what you want by taking too much of a stance, by being inflexible in that risk. What do you think?
It depends. Like, I've had jobs where, like, I mean, sometimes being a woman in entertainment is difficult because it is a male-dominated industry. I'm not complaining. Like, I don't go out and drink and party or do drugs in the office or do questionable things in the office. And a lot of people were doing this. I'm like,
Right.
I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not doing that. And
Right.
there was even no guarantee that you would move ahead. It's like, I'm not doing that. Or I'm not.
That was a smart
Good.
risk, but that was a smart. I applaud you for not taking the risk and becoming a fucking drug addict.
Well, yeah, there were lots of functioning drug addicts at some of the places I worked. But the thing for me is if it requires me to change myself in a way I don't like becoming vain or becoming a fucking party animal, no. Hell no.
So it's very interesting. By the way, I'm going to the chat room, and we said before, Ricardo said it used to be in the top 10 sub-12 chess players in Portugal. Then I met cocaine. Cocaine is bad for your brain, apparently. I think that was I'm gonna call. Can we agree that was a bad risk for him to start doing coke? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thinking maybe it'll
Absolutely.
speed up your brain a little bit, that you'll be able to stay up more and just get more pawns captured. I'm gonna go with bad risk on that. Can we get a universal agreement here? All right, cool. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna assume you agree. Great. Okay, Bubby, tell me what's a good risk for you. What's a bad risk?
hopefully going to be starting a new job next week. That I
Woohoo.
wanted to get away from where I was. It's actually a lot of what you were talking about earlier about good pay, but you're miserable.
Right.
It's a lateral move. I won't be making less money, but of course it's always risky. I don't know how long it's going to work out because I've been where I am for over 5 years, so it's not a short employment. But I also have a child. I have a wife. We just bought a new home.
You have to consider those.
Right, and she was in school, so
Biological.
I wanted to leave 2 years ago, but she was in school, and once she graduated, she got a significant bump in pay. So now if it doesn't work out, I do have that safety net. So I compromised. I was like, you know what? I can grind this out a little bit longer. That way there's far less risk. So if this doesn't pan out, we're not going to be homeless.
So do you feel like there's ways to there's ways to take risks, but to be careful about when and how? Like very calculated. You're talking about calculated risk as well.
Absolutely. And when you have people relying on you, it's a totally different ball game than you just graduated college, you don't have a significant other, and you're just trying to plant your life somewhere.
Well,
It's a lot different.
I don't have children at this time, so I feel like I can do more without having to sort of have some. Like if I fuck up, it's my fuck up. You know what I'm saying? If that risk didn't pan out, it's my problem. I think risk can be very negative when you take too big of a risk when somebody else is depending on you.
Because we all have to own our mistakes, but when you have people depending on you, they have to own it as well. And I feel like that's just morally somewhere that I'm not willing to go, is put my family's well-being. Did
anybody see Little Miss Sunshine? No? Okay. So the main guy in it wrote a book, and it's being turned down, and he just hates his life, and the whole thing is about taking a chance, and he took a chance, and he failed, and his family was suffering for it. But his father reminded, it's just very interesting of like, even sometimes when people depend on you, you got to take a risk. I mean, because if you don't, then you'll be stuck. Like the person, put it this way, right now, I don't have a lot of money because I put all this money into the stream because on and on and on and on and on. I hate to give a fucking sob story, and this isn't generating enough yet. And somebody just subbed on the channel. Thank you for that. But right now I've been taking risks on fucking stock options with the little money that I have. And I've had some success with it so far, but it is fucking dangerous and it is risky as all hell because it's another form of gambling. Now I don't have a kid depending on me, so I can take this chance and I could say, hey, I want to take my 1 month of safety and I'll try to elongate it to 6. And that's really risky because it's really hard to do. But I come from a life of conditioning for that risk. Like I'm a professional risk taker at this point. And I'm not saying that that's good. It just says that when I'm in the fire, I'm used to it, from just a variety of my experiences. And I think that I'm not saying I'm very strong, but people like me can be very, very successful and very strong in this world because we're so used to rolling the dice and not always in stupid ways. And if you're a person who rolls the dice and you get smarter and smarter about how you roll it over the years, you can become extremely successful. And that's how I look at people like an Elon Musk, where guys who are like, hey, I'm just going to put out this new endeavor that's taking over the world. And I'm going to do it. And
they
nobody's
also have a lot of money going behind that.
Right. But that money came from some original risks that finally paid off. I mean, I don't know his story particularly, but how many failed ventures did he have before PayPal? And then what did he then propagate that into, and then that, and the fact that that person is never sitting still. They want to do an underground hyperloop. They want to do, it's a person who wants to go to space. And I think that we need more of that, but I think that we need both people. I think we need people on both sides of the equation. We need people like Jerry here to say, this is the assessment of that risk. You need to be pragmatic in this way. And we need the risk takers as well, because without the risk takers, nothing ever changes, neither scientifically, socially, or financially. Those people are essential to the world. So I applaud the risk takers as long as they're doing it for the right reason. When they're doing it for selfish reasons only or ways that are harmful to other people, I don't applaud them because that can be sort of damaging. But I think that, all of us need to take more risk in our lives because the only thing that stops us from those risks is fear. And fear is the enemy of personal happiness and success. So risk can be very, very, very wonderful. Anyway,
sure.
Sorry, that was a really long story. So anybody else? Tell me a story. Let's go to Danny, where you took a risk and you regretted it.
Well, so the risks, I guess I don't take that many risks.
I'm gonna call you out on that for a second. Forgive me for exposing your personal details because I'm going to, because you're on a podcast and you're always on my stream anyway, because you play
That's
video
true.
games with me. So it's not like
True.
you haven't said this stuff online. Danny has had a few, I think, long distance relationships.
This is true.
Right. These are risky. I have as well.
Yes.
Has everybody in here had a long distance relationship at one point or another?
Many.
Many. Whoa, I love the tonality of it, Zed. I love it. Many. Might as well have had the fucking voice. Many. That's what that sounded like in my
I
brain.
have a cold at the moment. I'm holding it.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Aw.
Okay, so Danny has had a lot of those are risky because the person is far away, because
That's
it
true.
causes problems, right? So
Yeah.
why do you take those risks?
Love struck.
Love struck. Love
Um,
struck.
So my last relationship, which is no longer a thing. Yeah, I had only been talking to her for a month, and we decided that we might meet up to just like, because we became really good friends really quickly. But I never met her, so we tried to meet up with her, and hopefully she's not watching because that'd be really embarrassing.
We're gonna call her for the
um,
sake of this discussion, Alice. It's not her name,
Yeah,
right?
Alice.
Okay.
So
Alice.
was too nervous to meet up in a public space.
Aw.
And so I was like, okay, no big deal. So I was like, all right. She lived far away, so I was like, I will drive
How
to
far?
your place.
How far?
She was
Don't know locations. Just how time-wise, how much far?
like 4 to 5 hours away.
Okay, fair enough. I don't want to know that Alice lives at one Tuckahoe
I
Lane.
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. So she lives like 4 or 5 hours away,
Mhm.
depending on traffic, and I was like, I will drive out to you and stay the weekend. And yeah, that was a big risk. And I remember because I went out to hang out with some friends like halfway there. And I like legit told them, I was like, guys, I'm going to this girl's house. I've never met her before.
What was their reaction?
And they were all really concerned.
No, they were
all
You're good
concerned.
at now.
It's
They all
great.
had that face of like,
Oh no,
how do you know who this person is?
she's gonna kill you.
Yeah,
You're getting catfished by some Buffalo Bill character.
Oh
Right.
my God, she's gonna
Yeah.
take your skin and wear it. Oh my
Oh
God.
goodness. Yeah.
Oh,
So
it
I was like,
fuck me.
okay.
Takes the hose or gets the.
so I was
whatever.
like, I'm letting you know this is her address.
You gave her address out. That was risky.
I did. And this is where I'm going tonight. So if you don't hear from me for like a few days,
Okay.
then you should call the police.
So on the way there, okay. So forgetting the police, so there was a personal risk here because you've never met this
Yeah.
person in person. Somebody in the chat room said, "So wearing skin is bad now?" Question mark. No, it's
when
fine.
it's not yours.
Yeah, when it's not yours, it's fine. Fine. Just skin.
Skin grafts don't count.
Let me tell you something. It takes a lot less lotion on somebody else's skin to be moisturized.
lotion in the basket.
Yeah, exactly. That was scary. Never do that again, Alice.
Such a terrible movie. I hate that movie. But
All right, so hold on. So on the way
Yeah.
there, right? You're
Yeah.
driving.
yeah.
Are you running the risk management system?
Oh, yeah.
brought to you
Oh,
brought to you by Jerry and his company, right in your brain, right?
Oh yeah.
Of-
I'm running risk. I'm running like risk management of like, what do I do ifs?
Ifs. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some
Because
ifs.
I'm like, I'm going for it. I'm
You're going
gonna
for
do
it,
this.
and you're like, "Fuck it, I'm
But
gun ho." So let me give you
I'm-
some ifs. I want to hear your
How
reaction
do
to
I
the
hide
ifs.
where I'm going to hide my phone?
Right.
Who
Okay.
I'm going to call first.
But that's the safety
Um,
side. That's the safety side. I want to.
Yeah,
I want to back off that and say,
okay.
are these some of the ifs as well? Will this person like me in person? Did that run through
Yeah.
your mind? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a big risk there. So personal risk. I wonder, will I like this person in person? Will
Right.
I? Will
Yeah, that was one that I was worried about. I was like, there's this whole like persona that she's given off, and
Right.
is it going to be the same?
Right. Is there actual chemistry there besides this? Right.
Right.
Did things go through your brain like, why do I keep doing this? Or I'm doing something that may not make me happy. Is like, is there a macro thing that's going on in your brain too
Yeah,
on
I
this
mean,
drive?
like I'm one of those people who thinks way too much, to the point where sometimes like I might be sleeping, but I'm still thinking about all those things, and I'll feel better if I'm awake than asleep. But that's a different story. So yeah, I thought about all those types of stuff.
Wow.
And
So what kept you driving? Like what
Well,
what
at one
stopped
point,
what
like, I
what
just
point did
told
you like
myself-
pull over and be like, I don't know, this risk is too good?
I guess I just was like, I felt like I don't feel like I take enough risks, and it was
Oh.
like something that
Whoa, so this was a
I was like,
reaction
this is
to not
something
enough
that-
risk. Interesting. Okay.
I need to give a chance,
But-
and
but-
I'm willing to take the risk and face the consequences of whatever is going to happen for this.
So Breaker in the chat room said, if you're horny enough, you will drive. That's amazing. By the way, that's an amazing comment. It's an amazing comment. Okay, so let's back
Now
it
I'm
up.
sweating.
No, it's great. This is a fantastic story. Fantastic. So, and anybody else wants to pipe in on this story, ask any questions, please feel to interrupt. I know I haven't done it enough yet. So that's a joke because I interrupt all the time. So how dare you? Have there ever been moments? I want to poll the chat room. Let's go to Zed really quickly, where you were going to take a risk, but you chickened out of taking that risk that you can remember.
Whenever I chose to take a risk, I never chickened out.
Ooh, interesting.
Really?
Interesting.
Wow.
Erica, what about you?
Yeah, but the risk didn't really even. It wasn't like this paramount crazy risk. It was just stupid. So, yeah.
I usually go through with the risks that I'm going to take. I'm like, I'm going to fly to this fucking festival and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. My problem isn't once I decide to do something, I chicken out. My problem is getting to that point of decision. I suffer
I'm
from
the
that.
same.
Yeah, then I understand. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, because I choke before the fact. Like, I'm like, I'm just not going to start. But sometimes it'll be something that I just need to do, and I sit down and I just freeze because it's too risky to do something that I've done 1,000 times. It's really strange. Sorry, Zed, you were going to say.
I was gonna say sometimes like when I get like that, I don't see it as me chickening out of the risk. Like once I've decided I'm going to take the risk, I'll do it. But in that moment before where I'm considering it, is it risky to do this? Is it risky to do that? It's not how it affects me that changes my decision. It's how it affects the people around me.
Interesting. Well, that's the same thing as having children, right? Because you're in a situation too, where you have family members, right? So you do things, it changes the dynamic of that, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So we won't go too much into your personal shit. So I don't really know anything about it. I can make up stuff about Alice. We're not talking about Alice, though, are we? Okay, don't bring Alice back on the table. Okay, so let's look at the chat room. Who else here? So Jerry, if you're still there, tell me a risk that you wish you took in your life. Could be a younger age, anytime.
No, I think and I still have this in my head. I still want to do skydiving.
Whoa! I will not be joining you. By the way,
Yeah.
we've established that moment.
I've still considered it. So because I've seen it happen. There's a certain thing I want to do, and they even have things like they have an indoor skydiving thing where you're just flying on in front of a big fan that has a mesh.
Oh,
on
I
top
want to
of
do
it.
that.
So,
That I do.
yeah, but I do want to do skydiving eventually. It's a good thing that I didn't decide to do it when I got my life insurance because my life insurance would go up because
Look
of
at you,
it.
bro. This is this is so
but I
revealing
didn't
of
know
who
that-
you
but-
are.
But I didn't know.
Jesus Christ.
I didn't know that my rates would skyrocket.
Just
So-
this fucking
so now that
guy.
I'm locked in.
Hold on a
now
second.
that I'm locked in, so
Jerry,
I can
this
do
is
it,
fucking
so.
hilarious to me. The first thing your brain does is talk about life insurance. Oh my god. He's like, we're talking about his fucking lifelong ambition. He's like, yeah, but my rates would have went up. Oh my god. You sure you're not one of my part of my Jewish tribe, Jerry? Because you could be, bro. You're very Anyway, so okay. You're very whatever you are, that's what you are. It's like I would have taken this risk, but God, my premiums. My theory on skydiving is I don't want to put anything on my bucket list that could cause me to kick the bucket early. Why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. And yet I fight in these karate tournaments. Makes no sense. Okay, Erica, a risk. Are you with me, right? Erica, you still here?
Yeah.
Okay, a risk that you wish you took more.
Going out networking.
Whoa, interesting. So you wish you went out and networked more. Why do you wish you did that?
I would just meet more people to work with, and like that usually is what leads to some cool jobs. But like the biggest thing I hate about those things is like you get that awkwardness with somebody that you don't really click with, and then you kind of panic
I have the same
and
problem.
look for another person to talk to. Like, oh, okay, this person does not want to talk to me. Abandoned ship. Where the fuck do I go now? Like that's
so what would it take for you? Because that's one of the risks you wish you did more. For you, what would help you get over that that fear of that risk, so that you did something you wanted to do more?
probably going with people that I know, but like most of my friends right now are like locked down at jobs. So most of them don't get out until like 7. So, yeah.
So you feel
Yeah.
like having a wingman or wingwoman in these networking events would help.
Yeah, instead of going to nightclubs, I go to networking events. That's
I would
that's how-
totally network with you.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
see?
You have an offer. And she'll drive to network because she'll drive for other
Aw.
things. It's only 4 or
Hey.
5 hours away. She'll be here and she'll worry that you're going to kill her. You know, should we call you Alice now, Eric? I'm just
Why?
kidding, right? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
Are you
joking.
sure that was?
Erica, just give her a fake address.
Yeah,
that's
just,
all.
let me
Yeah,
tell
I'll
you
drive
something.
out to some random ship place.
I've worked with
Yeah, like-
Erica. She has great skin if you wish to steal it from her body.
Oh my god.
Fuck you, psycho! Why are you telling me about my skin?
I'm just
Ew.
trying to blow you up your skin. You got nice skin. I'm sorry.
Great. Now that's something I know about
Great.
you. You look at my skin a lot. You.
Creep. Creep. Right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jerry. You can say?
I will say that sometimes it's good to have a partner to go to those networking events,
Yes.
but other times you use them as a crutch because you won't talk to people.
Oh,
You'll just
interesting.
talk to your
Good
partner.
point. So that friend will
Okay.
become
don't
like a-
talk to me much.
right. So that friend will like. There's a reason that Danny didn't take Jeskidding to go see Alice, because I would have totally been like really annoying and like, commenting on everything, and it would have been terrible. Terrible.
She has actually watched this stream before.
Really, Alice?
Yeah.
Hello.
I
How are you?
convinced her to
Really?
try it out sometimes.
And
but
she-
I don't think she's watching right now.
She immediately quit. She took one look at this fucking face and was like, no, that's a
No,
risk
well,
that of my time that I'm not going to do. Is there a
She
way?
actually said that the Overwatch is way too high, fast-paced, that she couldn't follow at all, so it gave her a headache.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, how about this? Would this give her a headache? Alice has been known to have a headache at the most inopportune times. I don't know anything about Alice. I don't know anything about Alice. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. Sorry, Alice. You know, Alice is, yes, my real skin. All right, Bubby. Risk you took more. Wish you took more of.
I don't know. I lived a very fast-paced, risky life. I mean, I got my first motorcycle when I was 18. Sold it a few years ago. So basically, all my 20s was just a mess of crazy, stupid shit that
But don't you think you
I
felt?
don't.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't regret doing it because I'm happy with where I am now. But at this point, I feel like I've had my share, and I'm just trying to. I think a lot of people take risks because they're unhappy, and I was very unhappy.
Interesting.
And once I finally figured out a way to just appreciate where I am in my life, I became a lot more risk averse.
Right. Well, no, and there's nothing wrong with being risk averse. Nothing. I'm not. I think it's somewhere balance in between. Breaker from the chat room said, "A risk I wish I took more. I wish I forced myself into a group of people more. Something I was really afraid of until I did it, and it was not so bad. That's great." And he said, "Something I really regret doing stand up for the first time. I bombed so hard." So,
Yeah.
but he's saying he did stand up for the first time. He or she. I don't know if you did stand up after that because everybody bombs the first time in some way, and so that's the learning experience for the rest of them. So I think that to take a risk and then have something not go well, and then to use that as a forward-looking statement, that risk is actually more harmful than good because maybe you had a better outlook on it before, and now you have a really shitty one because it just was a negative result. And that's what I'm saying is we have retroactive meters on what risk was good or bad, don't we? Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not good.
I greatly, I regret not buying that 100 bitcoins in 2012 like my friend did.
But that's a risk. That's a retroactive risk. Yeah,
$1,200. That's so stupid. I'm not doing that. And then look at me now.
So Breaker said he never did a stand up again. And my advice to Breaker was do it again. See if you buy, and then do it 5 more times, and then decide if that was a good risk or not. So yeah, but look, you could have. When I first got out of I got out of a job that was it's a good job, but it was very stressful. So I don't want to say anything negative about the job, but I was like really some of the people I worked with, I fucking hated them. Let's just be overt about it. I fucking hated them. They were kind of selfish, entitled, awful people in my opinion. But so these people are fucking awful. So I quit, right? And I said, I was tied down to this job. I said, like, 2 risks I took, right? I just started to buy fucking lottery tickets. And I was doing risk as a way to be self-destructive. Because I'm not winning no fucking lottery. They don't give money to guys like me. I'll blow it. Well, actually, everybody does that, so maybe I would have won. But my point is that I took too many risks at that point, and I took stupid risks on shit like that. And then in some ways, though, I think that like I got to the place in my life where I take risks. The best type of risks are risks that you take on yourself. Risks in believing in yourself. Quick break for the chat room, and forgive me those that are listening, but there's a lot of activity today. Hello Dream, and it sounds so crazy to say out loud these fucking names. I'm risking losing all of my audio audience to this. But hello Dream, and Gavin, and Z, and we're doing a podcast, and it's live on Twitch, and we're here, and we're talking to people about risk versus reward. Is it worth it? What are the biggest risks you ever took? What are the biggest risks you ever regretted? Do you regret being here? What about Alice? I don't want to keep going back to Alice. I'm fascinated by Alice, Danny. This is a great story, and so Danny, I'd like to tell a story about Danny. Danny was extremely nervous to come here today, and she said this in the other podcast because Danny doesn't like her voice. Danny was afraid to be on camera. You're very natural at telling stories. Do you think this was a good risk? Now you're in the middle of the risk. You're not out of it yet.
This is true.
Are we? What are we thinking here, Danny?
So far, it's all right.
Really?
But the thing is that it's just like it takes one comment about my voice, for example.
But you get a lot of those.
Off so much.
So why? I don't want to go too much into your stuff, but you get a lot of those comments, right?
This is true.
So at some point,
it's wearing me down.
well, at some point, it's got to just either you got to go one way or the other. Either slaughter an entire fucking society. or just be like that's what people that's what people are gonna think and that's fine. Like you look at like
well, I would say that like I've honestly taken into consideration of like seeing a voice coach and like trying to change my voice, which I think it's possible, but it'd be weird to like have a voice that's different than mine. Well,
but Danny is the greatest. JJ just said in the flat room. Floppy said she has a relaxing voice, in my opinion. You look at like take a look at Andre the Giant, right? Andre the Giant, he's 7 foot tall guy. You ever see
anybody want a peanut?
Exactly, right? But he was a famous wrestler, and he was an amazing man. And there's a documentary about him. I highly suggest you go watch it. And he was at in The Princess Bride, and and everybody was strange, and then he goes, I love it here because no one looks at me like I'm different. And here's a guy that influenced an entire generation of people, was unbelievable, but because he was 7 feet tall or 7'5", whatever the fuck he was like monstrous in his size. His entire life he was prejudged, and his entire life he had to deal with that moment of there's something about me that sort of I have to have that moment with people about. And then you start to think like, but what a wonderful person, and I wouldn't want Andre the Giant to be any different, just like I wouldn't want you to be any different. And I feel like we all have that thing, and you start to realize there's something about everybody that's a little bit off from the norm. And you could be the hottest woman in the world, right? We don't know, but like if you're the hottest woman in the world, that could be the thing that's that thing that causes that moment to happen, and just in a different way, and not always in a good way. I remember I was at karate once, and there was this woman at karate, and her husband was there. She's like, "Can you walk down the street with me?" And she was super beautiful. And I said, "Oh, okay, why?" In my brain, because I'm like fucking 12 and I'm dorky. But I walked with her, and I was thrilled to do it. And she was like heckled every 3 feet. And I'm like, but she's gorgeous. And that was the problem. It's very interesting. You start to look at those things. So I hope for your sake, you take more of these risks, because we all think you sound amazing. You know what I'm saying? And so what if somebody says something negative? Fuck them. They don't know you. And they're always going to say something negative in all these different ways. That's just, sorry, this is a total aside. I'm thinking, for me, this is a good risk for you. Because there is no way for it to backfire, because you own you. You know what I mean? Fuck everybody else. Anyway, totally off topic. Sorry. Okay, let's go back. So anybody else have any risk stuff? Let's go to Erica, right? Give me a story really quickly, if you can think of one. If not, we'll pass. Without being too specific, when your friend took a stupid risk, and you're like, yo, that's a stupid fucking risk.
Yeah.
Besides me. Don't talk about me, please.
No, not you.
Please, God.
That's too easy.
Yeah, it's too easy. Everything I do is stupid. Yikes. That was painful, bro. That hurt on the outside.
No, it's the thing you were talking about earlier. Someone's like, I'm going to move to the UK, and I'm going to start a martial arts school. And I met this woman on a one-night stand, and like we were talking to each other over the internet. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Oh my God.
So you think that some risks are bad when they're coming from a negative place? Do you agree with that?
Just not thinking things through.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
You know what it is? I call it the quick fix. The quick fix.
Do you feel like sometimes those people take those risks, and what they're actually doing is something that they don't even understand about themselves? They're like, yo, I'm going to go to this other country to be with this person, but really it's because I'm totally unhappy with where I am and I'm looking for an out, and that this is not the right out. I'm not thinking it through. I'm just going to do it because the risk is intoxicating. What do you think?
I definitely think that's a factor. I actually almost did that. Fun fact. I almost joined the army.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had trained up for it too. And
what made you?
And it was that exact reason. It was that I just
wanted out.
I was really dissatisfied with where I was.
So some bad risks are running away from something. As opposed
and
to
I was
towards
so
something.
glad I did not do that.
Interesting.
Because I think I would have been 10 times more miserable. But I also don't think I would have made it in, just for the fact that I have spinal issues, and so I don't think I'd pass the medical test.
But I'm not.
I was strong enough.
No, it's very interesting. Breaker in the chat room said there are girls with really bad voices who went on to be amazing voice actors. I don't like hearing people with boring voices talk. I think a crazy voice is cool. Isn't that great? Isn't that nice? This is like a Go Danny. It turned into Go Danny, the podcast. What the fuck? You're hijacking my podcast. How dare you come here with all this nonsense?
I send all the subs to Jeskidding.
All the subs to Jess. Danny.
Don't follow me.
Yeah, she's absolutely right about that.
I stream
horribly. Pay attention
and
to me.
I don't put any risk into my Twitch stream at all.
No, you're amazing. So, okay, let's go to Bubby. I'm sure you have a quick story about what's the stupidest risk a friend of yours ever took.
Yeah, I've got one friend, actually. We're still working on getting this fixed, but he's I'm sure everybody knows at least one person in their life that always has car trouble, like always.
Yes.
And he had an opportunity where his sister was going to help him out and basically give him a small loan, no interest, just pay it off, every month. Going to give him $5,000. And I said, dude, $5,000 can get you a very reliable car. It's not going to be anything fancy, but it's going to have AC and get good gas mileage. And his idea was, well, I have these other bills. I'm going to buy a car that I have to fix up and use this other money on these other bills and try to get this car running. So he bought an overpriced POS that broke down within a month, and now he's driving a rental that he's paying $20 a day. I'm like, dude.
This is the guy who don't think anything through. So I think that you're bringing up an interesting point, that risk is bad. Like I said before, like risk is bad when it constantly imposes on other people.
Exactly. Like he didn't have a safety net. Like,
Right.
because I have a project car, but I also have my paid off, like regular, just daily driver. It's like 15 years old, and it gets me to A to B. But he didn't even have that. He didn't have a running car, and he immediately jumped straight to a project car. I'm like, dude, that's great and all. You have no safety net, and of course, the worst case scenario happened. It broke down within a month, and he, almost lost his job because of it.
And you all had to cover for his risks. I think that I want to talk about that in a second. I want really quick, the chat room, JJ said, not sure joining the army is a bad risk, to clarify. Maybe it depends on the context of someone's life, but it shouldn't be put in a bad light. Listen, I don't disagree with that. I talked about the army on stream the other day and said if it's right for somebody, amazing. And it really does help a lot of people, and it really gives them discipline and sometimes even a financial career. But if done I think that's only negative if done for the wrong reasons. You know what I'm saying?
To clarify, like, it definitely was not a, the army's bad. It was a lot of other factors and very, very bad reasoning.
Right. So, Bubby, you had entered that. So I think that, like, what your example is, and it's a very important one, is like risk in general, right? Somebody pays for that risk, right? When it's successful, you pay for it. But risk, by nature, is like a double-edged sword, right? So if you're the type of person who takes a lot of risks and fails at all of them, but imposes upon others to do it, well, those people are being pragmatic. They're not given the opportunity to take your risks. They're, in fact, covering for your risk. So I think there needs to be a consciousness of other people's involvement of your risk, and at least an acknowledgement or an appreciation for those that wish they had the ability to take those risks and are helping provide for those risks. Does that make sense? Because you really can take from others when you take too many chances.
Yeah, and it also brings up another great topic about giving and taking advice, but this is that friend. I'm like, dude, why do you call me? Like, every time you call me, I tell you what I feel is genuinely the best thing to do.
Right.
And you always just do what you want anyways. And then you bomb out. You're like, man, I should have listened to you. So now after we've gone through this cycle 4 or 5 times. He called me yesterday and I drove him around. We found him a little beat up $1,500 Taurus, but it works. It'll get him to work. And now he's going to save up for a decent ride.
That's great. I mean, but that person needs to go out of risk mode into maybe risk management mode, a little more careful, and go into just reliable, dependable, pragmatic mode for years. And I've done that. I came from LA back to New York City, and I had owed all this money. I still owe the student loans 15 years later. Oh, my God. But I was broke, and I was staying with my mom, and I was crushed, and I had a master's degree, and I didn't know what to do. And I got a job, and I was fucking working. I worked like 7 days a week. I just never stopped working until I paid off like $30,000 in credit cards. And I stopped filmmaking completely. And I just said, I'm putting it all to the side, and I'm going to establish a new base so that I can take the risks I want to when I'm ready to.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very smart thing to do.
But I think a lot of people are, well, like I mentioned earlier, like we just talked about now, like they're just unhappy and they keep doing these dumber and dumber things. And it's like, okay, well, first you need to establish a baseline. Like, can you take care of yourself?
You have to.
And then we can start looking at it. Because I think a lot of people, like I know, like he gets it now after a couple of years of struggling for this long. But I always told him, like, man, like you have a good job, just work, grab some overtime, save some money, and then we can look at these more adventurous endeavors, like getting a project car, building a little race car, or something like that. But I think a lot of people they look at that and think that you're, I don't know, man, you're just a worker drone. It's like, no, because here in 3 years, I'll be able to do whatever I want because I sacrificed my own basically desire to do something crazy.
Right.
so that in 3 years you're still going to be struggling finding a reliable car, and I'll finally be able to start doing those crazy things. You just have to be patient. It's all about calculating it.
But
It's not
I'm sorry.
a risk you take now, like building that project car, is a horrible idea for him right now. But that does not mean that it's always a horrible idea. You just have to set yourself up so that if you fail, you're not begging for rides and living back at your mom's house again. Like,
I agree completely. I mean, safety nets for risk as you get older. In the beginning, when you're a kid, you take all kinds of risks, but you have your parents, you have the system
yep, you
to
got that
fall
safety.
back on. When you take those risks as an adult, they're different. They're like, you just have to know that you have there's someplace you can fall, right? I mean, I've talked about like friend equity that you've built with other people by not taking too much from them, financial equity that hopefully you've built, a system of people that like you, maybe a system of people that will hire you should you need be. I take a lot of risks in my life, but I built all those things. There's always a foundation for everything I do. I've never been in my recent years in a place where like I'm done. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten close. But I like to believe that even with the high risks that I'm taking with the streaming all the time, with trying to venture out into a world of filmmaking where it's oversaturated and stuff, I do that with some foundation of here's my fallback for this, here's my fallback for that. It's definitely managed risk. Managed risk is the key to being successful, and you may still not be successful because the risk may not work out. But at least I can say in my life, I took the risks. I didn't cower in a fucking corner for my entire life. I took the risk to get what I wanted, to do the thing that I wanted. Whether I'm successful or not partially depends upon me in the way of like my hard work is a factor, but I don't control the universe or the world or the things that happen to me. I only control what I put into it. So I feel like as long as I manage my risk, as long as I'm careful about the foundation that's underneath it, then I'm doing the right thing. Because doing no risk, like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, that's as they say, the biggest risk of all.
Right.
So,
I mean, you see in athletics a lot. You see these college kids who are just coasting by with dreams of getting into the NFL, but that in itself is like winning the lottery. And then let's say you do get drafted and you blow out your knee, in practice, and now what? You didn't finish your schooling, you didn't get your degree.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, because a friend of mine I went to middle school with, David Price. He's a professional. He's an MLB.
No, let's call him Alex.
pitcher.
No name.
Okay, sure. We'll call him Mavis Lice.
Mavis Lice. It's a great name. Good job. I'm sure he'll appreciate that, David Price.
But his dad played for the Oilers back in the day. But he told Dave, he's like, man, you have to. Sorry, Mavis. It's like, Mavis, you have to finish your schooling. So he got a very solid degree from a prestigious school, then went into professional ball. So now, pitchers don't have a very long lifespan. So when he retires early, he can now go get a job because he has a legitimate degree in something and he has something to fall back on.
Smart.
But if he didn't have that, he could end up broken,
Well, I had a friend
See, I
who.
have the
I'm sorry.
opposite,
You first, Danny, please.
Oh, okay. Well, so like, I did the safe thing, I guess you could say. I got a bachelor's degree, then got a job. Then it was like, oh, gonna have something crazy happen in my life and disaster. And then after that whole spiel, because I don't need to go into that, because it'll take too long, is people were like, oh, you should go for your master's. You should get a master's degree. And I was like, I don't even want school, but okay, I'll take this risk. I'll take this risk and see where it takes me. Got a master's degree, and it's been absolutely useless. Like, so useless that it's been counter to benefit me.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
In the sense that, like, I tried to get jobs that I was qualified for, and nobody got back to me. Like, hundreds of jobs. And
the new America.
then
yeah.
I started lowering my standard, and they kept telling me that I was overqualified. So I ended up getting, like, the first job out of my master's program was a grocery store job.
Wow.
That was part-time and the job after that was working at a therapy place part time and as like a receptionist.
Well, the unfortunate thing, what you're saying is that, and this is, I mean, me and Erica can relate to this completely. I mean, in the arts especially, it's like the promise of our society that if you take the right risks, the pragmatic risks, you buy a home. That's one of them, right? You buy a home, you get a college degree, equals financial success here in this country.
Right.
It's just not. It's a lie. Both of those are a
Fully.
lie. You know what I'm saying? And like because homes take maintenance. Sometimes like in the housing crash, like you have a home and it's worthless. What the fuck just happened? I'm not saying as a whole homes are worthless, but it's not always the best investment. But you're told to take those risks, and they just sometimes they seem like sure things, and they just don't pay off. Like you could invest in the stock market as a risk, and the whole thing could crash and have nothing to do with you. And
Right.
it'll seem like a bad risk. But if you let your money sit in the bank and you make 2 cents, that's also a bad risk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I have an
Well,
anecdote on that
in
as
this
well, on the
context,
housing
it was
thing.
actually
yeah, I'm
was
sorry.
good
And
that
we have to conclude soon, so I'm going to do some final statements here. You ready for this? This is going to be a lightning round, right? Everybody ready?
ready.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Ready?
All right, so going to go down the list. I'm going to read from the bottom. I have the list in front of me. So biggest risks you want to take going forward? These are quick answers. Zed, go.
Start a business.
Done. OC Diva, Erica.
I don't know.
That's a huge risk, right? Misery, Danny.
To push for promotion.
Me,
I don't know if that's a big risk, but that's what.
that's a risk. You can
that's my
get fired
current- my
pushing for
current goal
promotion. Yes, that's
is
a
pushing
risk.
for a promotion.
That's a risk. Jerry.
None.
Wow, because you do everything by the book, you fuckhead. Right? All right, Bubby, go ahead.
Same thing, actually. I want to start a business, and I've already got all my equipment set up. So I'm basically just waiting for the right opportunity.
I'm going to say for myself, I want to be more brave about the risks that I already have in motion. I want to embrace my risk more by doing more, because I
Yeah.
feel like I don't do enough. I'm too afraid of. I'm afraid of the little risks every day.
Mhm.
I need to get over the little risk. The big risk is already in motion. That's my life. What I need is, I need to embrace the micro risks every single day, and I need to face them, and I need to conquer them, and I need to take them, and I need to not fear rejection in the process.